What's going on? Welcome back to Off the Schneid. Today we're going to take a look at the Minnesota Vikings heading into the 2022 NFL Draft. Above me you can see the draft needs, and then above that is the draft capital. Obviously free agency's wrapped up for the most part. Trades are wrapping up. Things will still trickle in throughout the summer, but focusing mostly on the draft. Teams are starting to have visits and everything like that and get prepared for the draft in 2 weeks' time. Keep an eye out for my mock draft. That's going to be coming out in hopefully a week to the day. April 22nd is the goal to have that thing released. 12th overall for the Minnesota Vikings. You know, there's not a crazy amount of like difference maker needs for this team. So it's actually a pretty decently big draft for this Vikings team. You know, I think that they can make a push. I think they can make a run at the playoffs this year, but let's get into that. Obviously, Mike Zimmer's out as head coach. Kevin O'Connell is in. He is the former quarterbacks coach of the one-time named Washington Redskins, where Kirk Cousins was a quarterback at that time with Kevin O'Connell. So it should be interesting. Obviously, there's that familiarity there, and they re-signed him to restructured, whatever you want to call it. You know, he'll be the quarterback of this team for the next 2 seasons, and that's just without question. So let's get into it here. We'll start at quarterback. Like I said, Kirk Cousins is the guy, will be for this year and next season, pretty much 100%, unless something crazy happens. Kirk Cousins is at a pretty fantastic career, to be honest with you. He's a very good NFL quarterback. He gets a lot of heat. You know, he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but you know, you're making it, a lot of people make it seem like Super Bowl is an easy thing to win, because you know it's obviously not. And Kirk Cousins is a very, very, very good quarterback. If you look through his stat line going back to his days in Washington, he's a very quality quarterback, above average in my opinion. I've probably got him top 10. I think he's a guy you can rely on. He can make all the throws. He can bootleg. You know, he can pick up some yards and first downs with his legs if need be. He can scramble, throw on the run, create for himself. He's a very good quarterback, you know, and he's getting up there in age. He's 34, you know, but 2 seasons from now he'll be 36. Potentially you move on from him then, but you know, right now I think Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback, and for this team especially, I think that they're going to have a good year offensively, depending on if they do some things that I think they should do, but we'll see what happens here. So backup quarterback wise, Sean Mannion, I don't know. Kellen Mond is a 3rd round pick. He's a guy that I really liked. Supposedly he struggled quite a bit last year. You know, we'll see if he takes that step and he can be the backup quarterback. I don't think that he's going to be the quarterback of the future. I never did. I always thought that he would be the backup quarterback for this team, you know, for the now and for the future. To be honest with you, we'll see. He's probably a career backup, and that's just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a problem, you know. It's just you got to get to that point where they can rely on you as the backup quarterback. It's actually a fairly important position, you know, depending on who you ask. For me, it's actually a quality position that, you know, is very, very highly coveted in my opinion. So there you go. That's the quarterback room. Nate Stanley's there, but he's terrible, if I'm being honest. So it's Kellen Mond is the guy you want to be your backup quarterback to Kirk Cousins. Obviously, you want Kirk Cousins to be healthy for all 17 ball games, and hopefully you're making a playoff push. Dalvin Cook is your starting running back. You know, they paid him to be that. He is that. As long as he's healthy, he runs super, super hard. It's very, you know, a little bit nerve-wracking when you're watching him lower his head. You know, he's one play away from a potential injury just because he runs so hard. He really does. And he's very, very good, but you know, it is just a little nerve-wracking, if I'm being honest. You know, as a fantasy owner, I'm not a Vikings fan, but as a fantasy owner of Dalvin Cook, it's a little bit nerve-wracking to watch him, the way he runs the ball. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the smallest guy either, but he's not the biggest body in the NFL, but he runs like he is. So yeah, I'll leave that there. Alexander Mattison, one of the better backup running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. He's very good. This team doesn't miss a beat if, and usually when, Dalvin Cook misses a couple games. Alexander Mattison can step right in, and this offense doesn't miss a beat. Kane Nuengu was a guy that I liked / didn't like, but liked. You know, for this team, if you go watch the episode, it makes more sense. He's a return guy. He can do a lot of things in space, get him the ball in space, like I said, 4.2 speed, track star. He can do a lot of good things. And then especially, like I said, in the return game, at the very least as a kick returner, you might not have him as your punt returner, but I would certainly have him as my primary kick returner, right out of the gate every game sort of thing. CJ Ham is still here. He's been on this team for a really long time. We'll see how things shift now that, Kevin O'Connell comes in. I'm not sure they'll run a lot of fullback stuff. Not that they did with CJ Ham, but he's a quality fullback. If you watch a lot of these, I don't mind fullbacks, and CJ Ham's a decent one. So there you go. Let's move over to the tight end position. Kyle Rudolph is gone. Conklin is gone. And then they're hoping that Irv Smith, finally becomes that guy. Obviously, he had a major injury last year. I think it was the Achilles, I believe. Sat out the entire year recovering and everything like that. Conklin had a very good season. He's moved on to the New York Jets. So they're hoping that Irv Smith is that guy. Johnny Mund comes in, with Kevin O'Connell from the LA Rams. Ben Ellison is your blocking specialist, blocking tight end. A guy that I really like is Zach Davidson. He was a 5th-round pick last year, former punter, oddly enough. Big body guy, athletic guy. He was bounced around between I don't think he maybe didn't even make the active roster, but he was a practice squad guy last year. And we'll see if he can crack this team. And, from what I've seen in the offseason and visits so far from the Vikings, they're really not scouting tight ends. So, as much as I think it's a need, and I do have it as a need, I'm really not so sure that they draft one. Just from what I've seen, it doesn't look like they're interested in the tight end prospects for whatever reason, because there's a lot of good depth this year. But I don't know. Maybe they feel very comfortable with Irv Smith. I'm not sure. But we'll leave it there. We'll move to the offensive line. This is a very good unit. I think Kirk Cousins is only sacked 28 times last year, which is not a lot at all. Like, that's, barely over 1 a game. So this is a very, very good unit. Christian Darrisaw, I wanted this team. I picked this team to trade up over the Chargers last year and get Rashawn Slater. And then the Chargers draft Darrisaw. But either way, I think it's going to work out for both teams. Darrisaw played well last year. They need him to play all 17 games this year and continue to progress to where he was, just continue where he was at last year, and they're fine. Ezra Cleveland, former 2nd-round pick, slides into left guard. I think he played right guard 2 years ago. He should be good. He was good last year. No reason to think he'll fall off. Garrett Bradbury is a very good center, very good offensive lineman. Brian O'Neill, very good right tackle. This line is very, very good, with the exception of right guard. Jesse Davis comes in, but he's a solid vet, and then Wyatt Davis is there for competition. So one of those two guys you're hoping can be your right guard, and then the other guy's your swing interior guard. I do have left tackle as a need here, which will be, end up being your swing tackle, your backup swing tackle. So it is a need, but it's not, a 1st-round pick or anything like that. Maybe that 3rd-round pick is the sweet spot kind of thing. Maybe the 2nd-round pick sort of thing. That might be a bit high. I would say 3rd or 5th round pick for a left tackle that's going to be your swing backup guy. That's what I'm thinking if I'm the Vikings. And then you're hoping Jesse Davis and or Wyatt Davis can be the guy at right guard and just improve. Jesse Davis, like I said, he's a quality vet, but he's not the best. He's not the best offensive lineman around, but you're really hoping Wyatt Davis is that guy. So we'll see how that shakes out. The only need I see on the offensive line is that swing tackle position. Starters are okay. Let's move over to the wide receiver position. I have it as a need up here for sure. If I'm the Vikings, I'm probably going corner with my 12th overall, and then wide receiver at 46th. From how it's looking, though, it doesn't look like they're gonna take a wide receiver with that 46 overall selection. It doesn't look like it looks like they're planning on drafting a wide receiver 3rd round or later. So that's 77th overall or later. The guys that they've brought in for visits are Romeo Doubs, Danny Gray, Tay Martin, and Corey Sutton. And none of those guys are getting drafted in the 1st or 2nd round. So, I feel like and it's just kind of indicative of what the Vikings have done throughout kind of history. I wouldn't say recent history, let's call it. Either they're getting a guy like Justin Jefferson or, Adam Thielen, undrafted free agent, KJ Osborne, 5th round pick, Amir Smith-Marset, 5th round pick, something like that. So, at 12th overall, I guess they could go wide receiver, but they're not going to, and they're not, from what I've seen them, bringing in visits and stuff like that, it's not going to be a wide receiver. So it's either that, an extreme difference maker, or a guy that they can develop. So, right now they're looking okay at the wide receiver position. They've always been a little bit on the weaker side. They've only had like 2 maximum, even when Thielen and Diggs were there doing their thing when Thielen was a little younger. That was really all they had. And then, Jefferson's in there now. Diggs is gone. Thielen's still there, but he's getting up there in age. KJ Osborne's coming up a little bit. There's a lot of hype around Amir Smith-Marset because he had that 3-catch, 100-yard game last year. But, realistically, I think he's just a depth rotational piece. He's not going to be a guy. So I expect them to draft one wide receiver, whether it's one of these guys or if they end up, taking a more skilled wide receiver there. I think they're grabbing a guy regardless that they can kind of develop. So we'll see. We'll move over to the defensive side of the ball. This is where things get interesting. Obviously, Mike Zimmer's 4-3 is out. Ed Donatel is in with the 3-4. And to be honest, like most times, look at the Chicago Bears right now. They're in a state of influx. But with this roster and how it looks and what they've done in free agency, I don't think they're going to miss a beat defensively. I think they actually might be a better defense this year with that change in scheme or structure, whatever you want to call it. So Dalvin Tomlinson, I think that, that's a plus for him. Armon Watts, pleasant surprise in the 6th round, by the way. I think that's fits what they do very well more. Harrison Phillips, I think, becomes your more of your nose tackle. Dalvin Tomlinson, I mean, either one, whichever one fits the mold more, in your opinion, be my guest. But the other guys can get after the quarterback. Dalvin Tomlinson had a few sacks. Armon Watts, I think, had 5 last year. Jalen Twyman was a very, I thought was a steal in the 6th round. Didn't play last year because he was shot. That's very scary. Obviously, he's recovered. He's ready to go. And hopefully he's the guy that, they drafted him to be. Like I said, I thought it was a steal in the 6th round. So hopefully he can be a quality player. James Lynch, former 4th round pick. You're hoping he can be that, again, either nose tackle, defensive tackle, that sort of a structure. But I think it fits this defensive line a lot better, especially with bringing in Harrison Phillips from the Buffalo Bills. So I don't think they're going to miss a beat, to be honest. I think they're going to be a better team. Look at the outside linebackers, edge rushers. They bring in Janarius Smith, who's played in that 3-4 structure his whole career with Green Bay and then the Ravens before that. And then Danielle Hunter, who you're hoping gets back to full health, you hope and you think there's no reason why he shouldn't. So he should get back to full health and be that double-digit sack guy that he's been for his career. DJ Wanham had, I think, 8 last year, 4th round pick 2 years ago. He's progressing the way you need him to. Janarius Robinson and Patrick Jones II, I actually thought that they fit a 3-4 more coming out of the draft last year. So I was kind of surprised when they came to the Vikings, but now, it's just kind of worked out nicely, very nicely. So they're more than okay with edge rushers, more than okay. They've got, 3 guys on each side kind of a thing. Kenny Willekes, I was a believer of him. I think he's out of Michigan and, 7th round pick. I thought that he was a good draft pick that year. From what I recall, hasn't really gotten much opportunity, but you got depth there. Bringing in Jordan Hicks, that was a great get. Pair him up with Eric Kendricks. You got some very good linebackers there. Troy Dye, I like him, 4th round pick a couple years ago. Chaz Surratt, another guy that I like, 3rd round pick, last year. Tuff Borland. Nothing wrong with him. Blake Lynch, they have some depth here at linebacker as well. This is a pretty quality defense, to be honest with you, with the exception, and we'll move it back to corner. I think that, they've always had a lot of quality corners on this defense, going back through the years. That's a Mike Zimmer thing, to be honest with you, but, they need to add some guys here. Patrick Peterson's, getting towards the twilight of his career. At one point, he was the best corner in the game, top 3 for sure. But, those days are gone, and he can still do a lot of good things. And maybe he moves over to, a safety position eventually. We'll see what happens. But, he's still a quality player, but they're going to need some depth here. Cam Dantzler's good. I don't mind Cam Dantzler. I thought he was better than a 3rd-round pick when he was drafted. I thought he was more of a second. Maybe some guys had him in the 1st, but I thought he was a 2nd-round guy. Either way, he's still there, and that's a quality piece. Chandon Sullivan comes over from division rival Packers. He's a very good football player, very good nickel corner, so he's going to help this out a ton. But beyond that, Harrison Hand, Chris Boyd, guys like that, they can help out in a pinch, but I'm not comfortable relying on those guys. So if it's me, again, I'm going 12th overall corner, 46 wide receiver. I don't think they're going to do that, but that's what I would do. So realistically, that brings the question, what do they do at 46 overall? I don't really know. I'm not sure. I'll think about it later, but I only do a 1-round mock draft. Maybe I should extend that to 2 rounds moving forward, but either way, we'll round this out with the safety positions here. Harrison Smith is fantastic. He's a very, very, very good player, but he's getting older. He's, I think, 34. He can't do it forever. That's why I have strong safety as a need, because you're going to need to replace him at some point, as of right now. And whenever he's still playing, he's a very quality football player. And, you're more than fine there. Very good leader, everything like that, but he can't do it forever. And then Cameron Bynum takes over as the free safety. He played very well last year. And I think he's a former college corner, if my memory serves me correctly, and slides into free safety, which is, a very good move, I think. And I think he'll excel. I think he'll do well in that position. I think that's what they drafted him to be, was that future free safety. They would need some depth though, so that's another reason why I don't mind grabbing a strong safety that's just a depth guy as well. So yeah, there you go. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm going to finish this off with where I think this team, they're going to be the team that pushes the Packers. I really think that this is a quality team. It's with their very quality offensive line, very quality defensive line. As long as they add a corner and a playmaker at wide receiver, I would put tight end up there, but it just doesn't look like they're going to grab one. I'd be more than 46 overall if they go with the tight end. I'm happy with that. That's the draft spot that's got me curious, is 46 overall. I really don't know what they're doing there, but personally, I'm grabbing a corner at 12, plugging them in, completes my defense. And there you go. Hopefully they make a playoff run. I do feel like in what I expect to be a bit of a weaker NFC, I think the Vikings are a playoff team. I think they can push the Packers for the division. Regardless, I think they can get into the playoffs. So there you go. There's your team breakdown, depth chart, team needs, draft needs, everything like that for the 2022 draft for the Minnesota Vikings. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video.